So, hello everyone. I'm Nicole Angela, the marketing manager here at Invenio, and I would like to welcome you to today's webinar, Reinvent to Reopen, Succeed in the New Normal by Establishing a Resilient Supply Chain Planning Process. Thank you for taking time out and being here today with us. Due to COVID-19, our businesses and lives have taken an unexpected turn for all of us. Invenio and SAP experts would like to discuss today what the reopening business would mean, how would supply chain react to the new way of working, and how would planning function of business work collaboratively to ensure better performance and cost avoidance. Please allow me to introduce today's presenter, Manoj Narang, Head of Business Development Digital Supply Chain at Invenio, and Ross Perkins, Digital Supply Chain Sales Expert at SAP. We'll be running a live Q&A during the webinar, so we have enabled our Ask a Question feature. It is on the right-hand side of your screen in the auditorium. So if you have any questions, just pop them in there, and if you miss anything, don't worry, we'll be sending around the on-demand recording when it's available. Over to you, Ross.
Thank you, Nicole. Great. Okay, so in terms of reinventing to reopen, so what do we mean by that? So let's start with what's happening today. Customers have gone through very recently an incredible difficult period with the first wave of COVID, as we all know. Now, truthfully, very few companies were prepared for this. It saw businesses needing to make decisions sometimes on a minute-by-minute basis, and really, they just weren't enabled to do this. Now, this resulted in a very difficult time for a lot of businesses, and some are still trying to maneuver out of this period today with great difficulty. We'll all know somebody in an industry who is struggling. Now, previously, we thought that wave one might be the only wave of COVID, but now we know, of course, that might not be the case. And yet, businesses are now being expected to restart their engines, hit the ground running, and continue business as usual. Now, that's great as a concept, and frankly, I think it's something that we should all be striving for. But the key question is, how can we do that by going back to the old ways of doing things that led us to struggle in the first place? Now, the answer is we can't, and this both creates a need and an opportunity for companies to reinvent themselves to get ahead when they reopen. So, if we look in a bit more detail around the challenges faced by companies in the supply chain space, I think planning is quite clearly one of the key areas. So both from a planning and a procurement point of view, it's very difficult at the minute to get access and an understanding of your demand, both short term and long term, and just as difficult being able to supply that demand, especially when you consider that the majority of suppliers are also going through this time and periods of huge change. So unless you're incredibly well integrated with your suppliers, it's going to be incredibly difficult to continue business as usual and reinvent yourself without new processes in place to be able to manage that. Even when you get to that point, when you look to start manufacturing, a lot of companies are now finding that their assets are aged and they're not necessarily optimized, and they're not taking advantage of the emerging industry 4.0 technologies that would allow them to drive a lot of efficiencies and automation to help them in this process. Now, if you couple that with the fact that customers are just as demanding as they were before, they require much more complex needs than they did previously, so customization becomes much more difficult, and they want new products introduced to the market as quickly as they did before. So from a research and development point of view and a sales and marketing point of view, this puts strain across the entire supply chain end to end. So let's talk about the planning priorities today, and I think there's four. So firstly, we know that demand is changing and we need to determine the new normal. Now, truthfully, none of us know what the new normal is. What we discuss now to be the new normal will not be the new normal in 1 week, in 1 month, in 1 year. So the flexibility to deal with that change is going to be incredibly important. Secondly, and this is one of the most important, you need to be able to scenario plan and model within your business. You need to be able to understand the impact of decisions on the business before you take that decision. That will be an incredibly powerful tool in such a dynamic marketplace moving forward. You will also need to understand and reshape your processes from a sales and operations planning and an integrated business planning point of view. If previously you were a business that would meet once a quarter, once every 6 months to run through your planning cycle from end to end, this is no longer good enough. You may need to increase that to bi-weekly. You may need to increase that to monthly, so you will always have your finger on the pulse of your business. And if you can successfully do those three, you will achieve number four. You will have increased your market-driven strategic agility. You can be flexible, you can simulate, and you can modify your processes to account for such a dynamic marketplace. Now, to reopen successfully, we know that we need to be more productive, more strategic, and more responsive. So what I'll do now is I'll pass you back to Manoj, who will take you through the rest of the presentation and show you exactly how we can help you achieve that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ross. So thanks, Ross, for that. As we saw, the planning priorities today are changing with the new normal. Most of us are not aware how we are going to function in the new normal, and we still are dealing with the challenges which were always there. The planning processes were always slow and cumbersome. But why are these planning processes slow and cumbersome? Is it because the team don't want to work together? No, it's not because of that. It's because most of the teams, whether it is sales, finance, marketing, supply chain, everyone is functioning in a different way altogether. Everyone functions in a siloed approach. People use different Excel sheets or tools to plan their strategy. Sales would use an Excel sheet to plan their demand for the future, but will that Excel sheet have reach to the supply team globally? No, maybe not. But at the same time, the finance team wants to improve the profitability. For that, they need to see how can they actually look at the supply plan, how can they look at the demand plan, how can they overall look at ways in which they can increase the profitability. So a siloed approach kind of slows down the process overall. This coupled with ad hoc collaboration on an Excel sheet or an email. At times we miss an Excel sheet. There is no sharing tool. Sometimes we miss an email. The planning process further slows down. And the third thing that you add to this is a complete disregard to all the constraints that a supply chain can face, whether it is raw material, whether it is partners that you might want to work with, or vendors that you would want to partner with. These are some constraints which also lead to a slow planning process, and basically in the end stops a customer from making better decisions. Coupled with all these things is the inability to simulate. So what if scenarios, kind of. So what if I do this, can I make more profit? What if I use this capacity to manufacture a certain product? Will I increase my productivity? Will I be able to cater to demand in a certain different way? All these challenges kind of lead to a very slow decision making process. In the end, uh, what we see is unhappy customer, unhappy stakeholders or shareholders who are not getting what they would expect from the company. So ideally, in ideal world, what we need is not a connected department planning system. What we need is a system which is connected through the network, which is connected with the customers, which is connected with the with the procurement teams, which is connected with the partners, vendors. We need planning at each stage, which runs through design to manufacturing, then to delivery as well. Not just at not just at once that you plan and then you kind of leave it, right? You need to continuously plan. Planning has to be more involved throughout the supply chain processes rather than just a decision to be more successful. And what we feel is the need is, you need to predict, you need to understand what your consumptions are from the what's your historic consumption, how are your sales team planning, how are what's your projection for the future, short term, medium term, long term. How will you cater to this by planning the right machinery, by planning the right capacity? How would you respond to this prediction? How would you have the right material, the machine, and the plan to cater to the demand that has been defined by the sales organization? Will there be any constraint, whether internal or external? For example, COVID-19, all of a sudden we saw customers, a lot of customers having a sudden spike in demand. There were customers who didn't see any, there was a big dip in the demand, but there were a lot of constraints to cater to that kind of demand, right? So do we have the right capability to plan against the forecast that is in place? The need is to align the forecasting and planning together. We need to document the gaps. What we need is something which helps us understand how do we simulate and make more better decisions. Can I something which helps us making the right strategy uh, to cater to the demand while maintaining the profitability. But when you're doing this, when you're actually predicting and responding and aligning, what you need to continuously steer through is the monitoring. You need to review the recommendations. You need to understand what could be the consensus plan. On the basis of that, what you need to make decisions on the fly. You should be able to make decisions on the fly in real time so that the profitability is increased. In all, what we feel is there is a requirement of a single source of truth, not just within the processes of an organization, but across the geography, across the product lines, everything. There is one single source of truth which then tells you how can you make profitable decisions. For this, what we are talking about is an SAP integrated business planning solution, which covers everything from operational planning to tactical and strategic planning. When I say operational, it covers all the demand processes, which where it helps through artificial intelligence and machine learning. How could you have the right and accurate forecast from a demand perspective? It helps from an inventory perspective to have uh, right and optimal inventory stock levels. It would give it should propose you to have the right inventory stock levels, but at the same time have the reduced cost, a very reduced cost to hold the inventory. But while we are taking care of the demand and inventory, it also helps you to take care of all your unconstrained and constrained capacity planning decisions, which would be in related to capacity. It can be related to procurement, raw material. But what we need is something which tells us, and that's where IBP kind of plays a role into these three categories from an operational perspective. And then on top of that, we have sales and operations planning, which is more like a backbone of these three processes, which helps you on the strategic and tactical side of it. It would help the leadership in an organization to make decisions on the fly. Decisions in the sense reviewing the demand, reviewing the inventory, making sure that we use the what if scenarios and simulate a new decision process, maybe simulate a scenario which can help in making more profit. And on top of that, there is a control tower, which helps from an advanced analytics perspective, which can help from an exception handling perspective as well. All this works on HANA, which is in-memory database, the fastest database, and kind of helps the planners and businesses to make the right decision. What we also understand is the tool, the the best planning tool today for everyone is Excel sheet. So this tool basically comes with two interfaces. One is Excel-based interface, which is where most of the planners are well versed with. So you can see it's more like it's an Excel sheet which comes with an add-on, with an add-on of IBP, but it also comes with a web-based user interface, a Fiori interface, which is very intuitive, which comes with a number of dashboards, which we'll see in the demo later on. But it comes with a lot of dashboards, heat maps, something which could be logged in through any device, and you could actually on the fly look at what is happening with your supply chain. With these tools, you also get a collaboration tool, which helps the entire organization, the entire supply chain team to collaborate with each other, where you could actually exchange ideas. You could actually keep all the stakeholders informed about what are the latest activities happening. It can also help in doing the right task management for the team as well. So this tool basically comes with all the three major aspects which are going to improve the overall speed of planning, whether it is the UI or the collaboration side of it. It kind of gives you the ability to plan more accurately, and give you the benefit in terms of uh, profitability, in terms of productivity, and all that. What we also are looking at is, all the customers today are looking at value to be delivered very quickly. We Customers don't want to wait for 6 or 9 months to get value out of a certain product or solution. Customers want value quickly, and what Invenio is trying to propose is a package which is more which can deliver the value within 90 days from the time we start the implementation. It covers all the processes from demand to supply to SNOP, uh, uh, where we can collect the data, collect your historical demand. We can do the statistical forecasting. We can create the demand plan, and then we can also review the supply plan into parameters. We can actually check the potential capacity issues. We can do the capacity leveling and analyze the supply plan. At the same time, it also gives you the ability to review your demand, your supply, reconcile both of these, and then in the end make better management decisions. This package is something which is unique in itself. It doesn't it actually gives you what would be required to make quicker decisions, better decisions from a supply chain planning perspective. Once What we also guarantee is, once we deliver this package, we will be able to contribute from a business perspective. The benefits would be very tangible. What we have seen in the past with our customers is, there is a guaranteed increase in the top line revenue in the first year itself, around 1 to 2%. There is better inventory management, around 5 to 15% improvement in the way inventory is handled. And also there is a better fulfillment, the order fulfillment side of it, so that we have happy customers. So around 5 to 10% is what we have seen with our existing customers, where we kind of have better fulfillment, better service. What we can now also do is, what we also wanted to do was to have a look at the demo today. My colleague Tuhina on the call would take us through the demo, so that we can actually see how the system works, how we can get the benefit out of this 90 days quick start package. Tuhina, would you like to share your screen and do the demo? Thank you.
Sure.
Sure, Manoj, thank you.
Thank you, Manoj. Before we start the demo, we have few questions. So first question is, how easy or difficult IBP is to integrate with ERP, and can it integrate with non-SAP ERP systems?
So yeah, Nicole, hi. I would like to take that question. SAP IBP, the power of SAP IBP is that it can work with any ERP. It can be integrated with any ERP. There are ready adapters through which it can be integrated with any ERP, not just SAP. So irrespective of whether you are using SAP or SAP S/4HANA or ECC or any other third-party ERP system, IBP can work with any of them. Integration is pretty straightforward as well, so it's pretty quick and easy.
Thank you, Manoj. I hope that answers on your question. Also, how is IBP rated in the world of planning systems?
Okay, again, and maybe Ross can add as well, but yeah, IBP is one of the top 5 planning tools, and I think it's one of its kind. Most of the planning tools would not give the benefits which we spoke about, like from an inventory leveling perspective, or the simulation perspective, the what if scenarios. So it's actually one of its kind, but it is definitely one of top 5 if we have to compare to other planning tools. So yes, sorry, Ross, do you want to add to that?
No, just to add to that, it is ranked very highly in terms of the Gartner Magic Quadrant, and it absolutely is a leader within the space.
Thanks, Raj.
Thank you, Manoj. All right, we'll take the rest questions after the demo. Over to you, Tahini.
Thank you, Nicole. So here what we see is the IVP web UI as also introduced by Manoj in one of the slides. So IVP offers two interfaces, which is one is the web-based and the other is the Excel-based. As we can see, the web user interface of SAP IBP is very user-friendly. There are multiple tabs with multiple Fiori apps, which makes the navigation a lot more user-friendly. Talking about one of the capabilities that IBP offers is the analytical dashboards. If I were to get and view the analytical dashboard, it's very easy just with a click. Here are the list of dashboards that we can see, which can be categorized depending on the roles of the planners and the leadership. Now, if the leadership is interested in reviewing the business performance on a daily basis, they could get into the dashboard, which is meant for the review purpose, and navigate through multiple charts which depicts how the business is doing at a fly. If we were to take an example of a heat map like a dashboard, so here through this heat map, we can categorize and understand how my multiple resources are performing. Are there any overloaded capacities? If so, yes, because they're depicted here with 101%. So I know that these resources are overloaded because of my production activities. And there are resources which are underloaded and have available capacities, which also depicts that we are in a position where we could shed the load from one capacity to the other. This helps in a better business making or decision making, through which we can also depict a demand forecasting patterns. What was my historical sales history pattern versus what is the demand forecast that the system proposes? How does the pattern look like? What are the numbers against each of the monthly buckets that we're talking about? Coming to the profit analysis, how is the profit happening? What is the profit status for all my SKUs against the quarters of the financial year we are interested in looking at? There are multiple type of graphs that we could view, one being by the location across the country here. So by the location, we can say that what is the actual quantity that we have sold in UK for the generics, for hospitals, for France, and for Spain. Similarly, if I were interested to showcase to my leadership, what is my ABC classification? Here, we could come and look at monthly that this set of data falls in my A category, which is contributing to 12.3 million around. Further to which, we could also drill down and look at the SKUs which fall under the A category segmentation. Through this dashboard, we get a very holistic view of how the business is performing and a view of my demand to supply to inventory and also my S&OP. We could track where my S&OP process today stands. So demand review says it's completed. We have moved to the supply review stage. What is the status? Well, it's not started yet. Who the owners would be and who would be my point of contact in case of any emergency that I would like to view. Similarly, we have multiple other dashboards and analytical charts that we can possibly think of. Sorry about this. So for example, for demand review, so this was from a management point of view, but from a planner point of view, if a demand planner would be interested to see what is my forecast for the next 12 months or next 2 years for the different product families, we could do that at a fly and also look at which products are we really talking about in a product family. So the dashboards carry the capability where the business decision making process becomes a lot more smoother. They have action points. They could review at the alerts. They could review at the capabilities here and take corrective measures. So this was about the web UI. I would also like to introduce you to the Excel user interface of SAP IBP. This sheet looks like just a plain Excel working sheet with an SAP IBP add-on installed on my Excel ribbon. Once we log on to it, my working sheet opens, which further looks like this. Here, what we see is not just the values of my demand or my product ID and my customer related information, but at the fly, we could also plot simple graphs on Excel to look at what my demand was versus what I could fulfill. Similarly, we could also highlight at the alerts, talking about capacity overloads. So in the analytical dashboards, we had just seen how a heat map could be used to depict capacity overloads. And the same fashion in the Excel user interface, a planner could identify through alerts that everything which is utilized over 100% pops up in red so that the planner or the business is aware that yes, this is a matter of concern where my capacity is being utilized over 100% and I need to take corrective measure against the same. And the Excel UI, as also rightly mentioned by Manoj, it is one of the fastest and easiest working fashion for most of the industries. Hence, SAP IBP on Excel UI gives the flexibility to the planners to navigate and use the working sheet in a similar fashion as they would have been doing so far. So, with this, I hand it over to Manoj, and we're open for any questions. If Manoj,
Thank
would
you.
you
Thanks,
like to pitch in here, please? Yes.
thanks, Tuhina. So, yeah, what I also wanted, sorry, can I share my screen again, please?
Of course, let me make you a presenter.
Thank you. So, yeah, before we proceed, I also wanted to give a brief about Invenio. We are a UK headquartered SAP Gold Partner organization. Uh, we started off in 2006, more than 1,000 employees. We most of the business that we do, almost 95% of the business that we do comes out of SAP only, and we work very closely with SAP on the digital supply chain side of it. Uh, Thank you. Thank you for, so Nicole, before we close, do we have any more questions?
Sure, we have a few questions come up. So, first question is this solution applicable for all the industry type, especially fast-moving consumer goods, manufacturing, 3PL, pharma, food, hotel, automobiles industry? Because each industry has their domain-specific challenges and impact due to the COVID.
Thank you. Thanks for the question, Nicole. Yes, it is applicable. So this solution works with all the industries, which you mentioned, Nicole. So it works with all the industries. In fact, the power is it has uh, ready models for most of these industries. So that's why the implementation is quicker. So basically, the scenarios, the best practices scenarios are already built in for almost all the industries that we spoke about, and that's why the implementation is quicker as well. The value that you get out of the system is also quicker. So yes, it does work with all the industries, and yes, we do understand that every industry is different. That's why the scenarios are based on specific industries as well.
Thank
And
you,
just
Manu.
to add to that, even if we were just talking holistically from an IBP software point of view, it's so configurable that it can be absolutely tailored to your individual circumstances. So if you were having problems in particular areas, or you needed particular reporting, or you needed to model a particular process, that's certainly something that can be done within the system, giving you that flexibility to make sure that IBP can help you push forward to reopen in your individual specific circumstances.
Thank you, Ross. We have one more question. Will standalone SAP IBP 90-day solution suffice all the requirements?
So, so the 90 days, like I said, the 90 days implementation covers the sales and operations planning side of it from for IBP. So it covers most of the processes from the sales and operations perspective. So yes, to get that, we will implement a few areas of demand, supply, and other few areas of demand and supply. So it would cover, to an extent, it would cover these areas, but and it would suffice most of the business requirements. However, once we talk, we can actually define a roadmap as to how the IBP can be adopted by a certain organization, because it has more than SNOP, right? So we spoke about other areas like inventory or control tower or collaboration and integration and all that, right? So we can discuss about a roadmap as to how the entire solution can be adopted. However, yes, to start with, 90 days can give you the value for most of the processes from a supply chain perspective. Yes.
Thank you, Manoj. Thank you everyone very much. I believe we don't have any more questions for now. Anyway, I hope that this webinar has been enjoyable for all of you, and we will be in touch with you after that.